Welcome, everyone. I'm Drew Schlussel with Wasabi. Welcome to today's webinar, Disaster Recovery Without Complexity. Oh, that's a tongue twister. We have some fantastic guests today. I'll introduce them in just a moment. But before we get too far down the line, let me remind you that today's webinar is brought to you by Wasabi. Wasabi is recognized as one of technology industry's fastest growing companies. Wasabi is on a mission to store the world's data by making cloud storage affordable, predictable, and secure. With Wasabi, visionary companies gain the freedom to use their data whenever they like without being hit with unpredictable fees or vendor lock-in. Sounds like something we're going to talk about today. Wasabi customers are free to build best-of-breed solutions, including disaster recovery, with the industry's fastest growing ecosystem of application and service partners like Veeam and Cloud IBR. So on that note, let me bring in my guests today. With us, we have Rick Vanover, Senior Director of Product Strategy at Veeam. Say hello, Rick.
Hello, Drew, and happy to be back on a webinar with you.
Great to see you again. And we have Greg Talone, CEO of Cloud IBR.
Morning, Drew. How you doing?
Fantastic, Greg. Thanks for coming on the webinar with us. So we are going to talk about disaster recovery. This is my metaphor of the castle under siege, although this one looks like it's taken a few hits. And, you know, this is always a very sensitive topic. We get a lot of questions about DR solutions at Wasabi. We're going to go pretty deep in a little bit, but let's start at like the 20,000 foot level. Let's do the halo jump here. And Greg, let me start with you. Like, what are we seeing in the industry that is creating challenges and higher demand for DR, disaster recovery?
Sure. So as we all know, ransomware has been, one of the biggest, newest threats over the past several years. It used to be, I've been in this business for over 3 decades. And in the beginning, it was, natural disasters, power outages, fire, flood, all that kind of stuff. But ransomware has really been, the leading vector of attacks that take businesses down, and it goes after anyone, anyone and everyone.
All the time, every time. Rick, you're familiar with this topic just a little bit. We've talked once or twice. Bring in your perspective on the need for DR.
Yeah, and much like Greg, I grew up preparing for fire, flood, and blood, but I think the one extra twist I'll add, in addition to the cyber resilience, ransomware resiliency story that I think is really important today. Am I allowed to pull buzzwords out of the past, Drew? I don't know.
Okay.
But digital transformation is real. And it's one of those things that we are very, as a business technology world, we're very digitally dependent now.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the craziest examples are airplanes. If they don't have systems running like on the ground, they can't even really go in the air. People won't get their miles, the least tracking the luggage and maintenance stuff. Digital transformation is real. And I think that's another area that really underpins a need for disaster recovery readiness.
Yeah. You mentioned airlines. JetBlue, one of our largest clients, has seats built out in our facilities with all the technology backed up, so that anything happens to headquarters, they can have their office back up and running in less than an hour. And if they don't, they have to ground all their planes, I think within like an hour or so.
Did not plant that. I love that,
Yeah,
Greg. Because seriously, airlines are one of the best examples of digitally transformed organizations. Everything from mobile apps to they have to lease the gates and all of that stuff. Service hours for flight crew, they have to track that. That's all data and systems, right? So when you think about resiliency, cybersecurity, fire, flood, and blood, there's an absolute need to get DR right.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, look, we got to introduce you to all these hospitals, right, that are being shut down, ceasing operations, redirecting ER traffic, because I think that's one of the, that one hits close to home. We're seeing that kind of dominoing through the country. Let's hopefully some of those folks are listening today. I'll just add to that, right? And we've had these conversations before as well. A lot of folks who are or have gone through digital transformation, they want to have insurance, right? They want to have something to help them out in case there is, an event. And a lot of the carriers or the underwriters are upping their game in terms of requirements. And not only are we seeing them require backup, which is considered the number one first best, part of your defense in depth strategy, but they also now want to see proof of a DR strategy.
Yep.
So I'm sure you're also getting lots of requests to provide documentation and proof to the folks who are trying to get their policies underwritten. Want to expand on that, Greg?
Yeah, so that's something that whether they're bidding on an RFP to one of their customers or prospects, or they're filling out insurance, or they're doing forensics if they've had a ransomware type event, they need these reports. And traditional DRAS gets very expensive. You need a hot site, you need a secondary site, you need a lot of hardware, you need expertise, and there's a lot of DRAS providers out there that they sell that as a service, but it's still not inexpensive at all. So that's kind of what we wanted to be able to provide the rest of the world with, was something that does that automated recovery for them, that gives them a DRAS type service, but does it really cost effectively, gives them that audit trail, lets them get a report every time they run a recovery, and then they can easily show that to any of those third parties.
Now, Rick, we're definitely highlighting Cloud IBR today and their DR capabilities. Can you talk a little bit about the intersection of Veeam and Cloud IBR?
Well, the intersection is really the heart of what Greg has built, which I truly think is an incredible innovation. I see a lot of interesting Veeam things. This one's different. This one's cool. The heart of it is really our portable data format. So that VBK, those Veeam backups, or if they're stored in object storage, we slightly adjusted as an OVBK, an object VBK. That is truly the gateway to this type of innovation. And Drew, true story, right? Now, I did not build anything as cool as what Greg has built, but we had to, hard cut, decommission a lab, open up a new lab, literally one rack over, but totally different networks. No joke, I put my backup into Wasabi in Canada and then restored it down to go one rack over to a totally different infrastructure because the backup is so portable. So that's the gateway drug. That's that first, like, once you get that aha moment that no prior infrastructure knowledge is required on a Veeam recovery, mouthful, then you can have these really innovative solutions. And it really bugs me, as I just did one of those big, massive analyst quadrant comparisons where they ask you, how do you protect your media server? Like, I don't even have a media server. I don't even need one, right? So it's one of those things that once you get your head around these portable formats, you can do amazing things. Not that I'm passionate about it or anything.
Yeah, I would add to that, Rick, that what also made Cloud IBR possible was some of the great REST API calls that Veeam develops, their use of PowerShell, so much that we were able to automate and take the Veeam product for, it's great for, you have your backups, they're sending it out to Wasabi, but most small businesses, they couldn't move a rack by themselves like that. That's something that you need that expertise in Veeam. And even a lot of the MSPs out there, they're great at doing backups, but they're not focused on disaster recovery. So by building a tool set that allows them to now become experts in it and do it, quickly and easily, that's been, great for a lot of the partners out there as well.
Yeah, good shout on the APIs. And that's one thing. I mean, I can spell IPA, but I can't spell API. And the thought here is that, if you have the expertise, and most end users don't, especially a small business, they really just don't have the time to go through that. So I think that the plumbing, the port APIs, the portable backup file, all of that together really paves the way for an incredible opportunity here.
Hey, let's take just maybe a half step back. I pulled up this slide, which I believe comes from our good friends at Veeam, and it spells out really what's going on in terms of our folks, paying attention in this space. Rick, you want to walk us through this? I think this is your data.
Yeah, so I want everyone to get kind of lost in the headlights here with these two green circles. And let's start with the one on the visual left here. How often do you update or test? By the way, those are two different things. The short story is not very much. Okay. A lot of only 21% are doing it at least monthly. So there's really right off the bat, 79% of the world is doing it wrong. The environment changes every day. I'll be the first to admit, when I was a practicing server admin, network admin, the DR test was come on in Saturday night. The boss is buying free pizza. We'll test a whole bunch of stuff. Most of it will fail. We'll try to do better next year. That's just not going to cut it anymore. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's the reality of what we were seeing in the market. So let's flip over to the right. Okay. So, okay, we understand there's an issue. And this, I think, comes from our data protection trends research, which Veeam's strategic research does some really cool stuff. It just gives some validation to the hunches that we have. It fuels our product strategy, our market strategy, and a whole bunch of other things. But the question was, what kind of failback mechanism does your organization use to resume functionality? When something bad happens, what do you go to? Okay, we have backups. That's great. Backup is not DR, and those familiar with Veeam know that the product is called backup and replication. But to the earlier points about replication, second site, always on, parallel infrastructure, those are each just dollar points, moving the decimal. You get a whole nother point, multiply it by 10, right? The thing is here, 30% are plain in hope, manually reconfigure things during crisis. Now, to quote my favorite Star Wars episode, rebellions are built on hope, but it doesn't really sit well for a DR strategy, right?
My favorite quote, Rick, is
Yeah.
hope is not a strategy.
Hope is not a strategy, but I'm going to put Star Wars out there. Rogue One, rebellions are built on hope, but you're right. Hope is not a strategy. Well, let's see who's doing it a little bit better. Predefined scripts and reconnecting remote resources, 52%. That sounds fiddlesome to me, okay? But the top of the chart here, the orchestrated workflows, that's where you want to be, orchestrated workflows. And I know Veeam has an orchestrator product, but if you don't have a second sign, it doesn't really help you that much,
Right.
okay? So, and then on top of that, I think what organizations really want is a managed service that's tested, it's verifiable, and above all, it's simple. And that's one of the things I like about what we're going to talk about next. So this is kind of state of the problem. And again, don't get blinded in the headlights of, it's too much, fire, flood, and blood, ransomware, DR, compliance, those other things come in here. It doesn't have to be that difficult. And I think that's what we're going to talk about here in a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And Greg,
Sorry, go for it, Joe.
Go ahead, Greg, jump in.
So the two numbers I like to talk about most on this slide is the 18%. Essentially, that is what our mission is right now, is to help the masses become a part of that 18%. And then the second one is where you have the people on the left who test at least monthly, 21%. We can say with a matter of fact that 100% of our customers test at least monthly, and some much more often.
Yeah, I given the increased frequency by which attacks are occurring, it's shocking that there are still so many folks who are testing on an annual basis, let alone like a once every 6 months basis.
It's generally a lot of work. It's it takes a lot of time, a lot of energy.
Well, and typically, right, it's the same people again and again and again, right? They have a run book, and as Rick said, right, they make a few notes and we'll fix this, we'll fix that. My favorite customer story, folks that I've talked to in the past, they would do an exercise every quarter. Now, this was a few years back, so I think they were still in a good place in terms of frequency of test. But what they would do is they would randomly select who was going to participate in the DR exercise. And they would specifically exclude all of the senior management team. So this fell onto the operational team, and, it was up to them to figure it out. And if they, had an absolute cluster on their hands, well, they could throw their hands up and, call it good. And boy, those debriefs were pretty brutal, right? Because this was a team that prided themselves in, 99, 100% accuracy or 100% success quarter in and quarter out. And I thought that was a great approach. I thought, especially excluding your senior leadership, where you normally just go, I don't know what to do. Pick up the phone, call Rick, right?
Or take away the lead architect. You could go that way. Then you got to really ensure that the ease of use of what you're implementing is ready for actual recovery, right? Because no disaster goes according to plan.
Speaking of which,
Yeah, and this is what over the past 30 years we've seen, especially in the small businesses who don't have that budget to do the DRaaS-like services. They had their backups in place. We started out using tape drives 30 years ago. People brought their tapes to our location. We'd recover them from tape, and we would charge a hefty price tag. Even with DRaaS and replication, most of our customers, they only get one annual test included in their services with us. And when we released Cloud IBR, we now give them unlimited recoveries, and they're free. You don't pay for disaster recovery anymore. You just sign up for the software, you pay the subscription fee, and now instead of running around, like this, and there's an animated version of this cartoon, which is a great watch. And what now anyone in the company, that you don't have to be even an IT person, anyone who has the rights to our software can log in. A couple of clicks, they launch a recovery. It's that easy.
Yep. So, are you guys ready? Let's go ahead and dive into the architecture. Greg's gonna gently take us through this. It is a bit to take in all at once, but I think for the folks out there who are hands-on and working this stuff day in and day out, they'll appreciate seeing how beautifully architected the solution is. Greg, go ahead, take us through this, and please be sure to help the folks understand, where does Veeam come in? Where does Wasabi come in?
So Cloud IBR is software as a service that completely automates disaster recovery. We stand up servers in the bare metal cloud. You have 25 gig NVMe SAN storage. You've got ESXi hosts. We provision a Windows server. We automate the installation of Veeam onto the Windows server. We then add your backup repository at Wasabi. We scan the bucket, we decrypt the backups, and then we automatically begin restoring all of your servers onto the ESXi hosts. So it's a single click to start the recovery, and we build out on demand all of that hardware. So all of the things in traditional DR, you don't have them, you're not paying for them throughout the year. You just use them at time of disaster or for a test. And most DR plans in the small businesses that we deal with, they have like a 2 to 4 week RTO, recovery time objective. And the reason being is the first thing on their plan is, call Dell, call HPE, call our vendor of choice and order X number of servers. So now they've got to ship all these servers out to somewhere. If it's a physical disaster and their building was affected, they've got to, now they need to negotiate a colo contract under duress while their building's, up in flames. So now they're getting colo contracts and shipping equipment, plugging it all in, racking and stacking it, installing the operating systems. And that whole process can take a couple of weeks just alone. Back during COVID, the supply chain was, 4 to 8 weeks out for hardware.
Yep.
So you finally get all this hardware set up, you finally get to install Veeam, now you can begin doing the recovery. So instead of that taking 2 to 3 weeks, we've boiled it down to about 45 to 60 minutes to stand up that entire environment and then begin that recovery process.
Impressive. And just to hit on a point you said a moment ago, right? This is an on-demand capability. So somebody doesn't have to have a long-term contract in place. They can call you up right now and say, I'm a Veeam user. I need to do a recovery. Can you help me? And you say, yes.
So I'll lead with pricing on this. So basically what our customers do is they sign up for one of the levels of the service they need, silver, gold, platinum. You can see the main difference here is this first line here, how much memory you get in your ESXi host at time of recovery. So the silver level probably covers about 80% of companies out there in the small business. And then as we go into the mid-sized companies, they can go up to the gold or the platinum. We also include IPsec tunnels in the gold and platinum. And essentially what this does is you buy this subscription, and once you're a customer, you log into the portal, you go through these tabs over here, do your onboarding. If you don't have any IT staff in-house, you go to your MSP, tell them about Cloud IBR, have them sign up as a partner of ours. I'll show you the partner portal in a few moments. And basically the partner can onboard you, have you up and running. It takes about 27 minutes is the average onboarding time for new customers. They come in, they click Start New Recovery. They have a few different options they can pick from, and they click Initiate Recovery. And what that does is it launches that thing, that whole process that we just talked about, where we reach out to the bare metal cloud, we start provisioning servers, we provision the Veeam server, a Linux firewall, open VPN, IPsec tunnels. So everything that you need in an offsite infrastructure for that recovery is up and running within an hour. And that you only pay for hourly. So when you're doing an actual recovery test, you pay hourly to rent that hardware. And if we come over to here on our site, us.cloudibr.com/calculator, come in here, you can see it's measured in cents, the things that you're renting. You come down, you put in your memory, how much space you need. And for this customer, $2.35 an hour to rent equipment versus, like that doesn't even cover shipping of a server, and you can run this, as often as you want. So that's the only additional fees you pay. And because Wasabi has free egress, they're never paying to do recoveries out to get that data out of Wasabi.
Which they should be doing every month.
Exactly, yep. So here's what a recovery looks like when it's in progress, or actually this one's completed. My test environment runs every day. So you can see it took 1 hour and 19 minutes, which it's less than a couple of terabytes, but super fast. As you go through here, you see all the servers that were recovered, their IP addresses, etc., all the VPN accounts that we created for you. And these are all things you fill out during the onboarding, real simple steps. Here's the physical equipment that we built for you. Here's your firewall. That also handles the IPsec and the Open VPN. And you get more details down here. Any NAT mappings that you wanted open to the rest of the world, we punched the hole in the firewall for them. And then down here, you can see this server was skipped because it's older than the threshold of 7 days. By default, we only restore servers that have been backed up within the last 7 days. Reason being is if you decom a server, but you're holding on to that backup retention, you probably don't need us to restore it during a recovery. So as it ages out, once it hits the default of 7 days, it'll no longer be included in the recovery.
Got it.
You'll also get, I'll go to the partner portal in a second, but this by default runs every month. You'll get this PDF report. Page 1 talks about what the report includes, what each section is for. And then you go through and it's essentially the identical thing that I just showed you on the other page where you go through, and now you have a PDF copy that you get every month. You can forward it to management, auditors, if you're responding to that RFP, whatever you need that for, you have the entire report ready for you. You can log in and have it resent if you need another copy, if you lost it. So that's how simple it is. The going through all these portals, the tabs, you basically go in, you put Wasabi, and it gives you the directions. You go through, pretty simple stuff. Anyone who's used Veeam before and who's done backup to Wasabi can knock this onboarding out, less than a half hour.
Greg, one comment on my side. Again, I truly love this as well, but a lot of customers might be like, stand up a Veeam server, stand up a firewall. That sounds a lot like infrastructure as code, but correct me if I'm wrong, but in the back end, you're automating all of that, and the end users, they don't have to secure that type of skill. They don't have to provide another Veeam license as well. This is all part of the offering, just to clarify. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%. All they need to do is go in and click that Recover Now button. And it is infrastructure as a code is one of the, the terms that we use. We are using dedicated physical equipment though. So it's not multi-tenant. It's not, spinning up in the cloud somewhere. It's physical equipment dedicated to you at time of test, at time of recovery. And the infrastructure part, everything else completely automated. All you need to do is click the Recover Now button.
So Rick, I think we need to extend the Veeam area code, right? I think it's 32110+1 now for one, Cloud IBR, DR as a service, DR on demand capability.
always thought it would turn into a phone number, Drew. So I think we're there. I mean, we could go 347. I don't know, Greg, if that's your area code, but 347-32110. We're getting close.
Yep. Yep. Great stuff, Greg. Great stuff. This is obviously, something that in addition to leveraging backups, in addition to leveraging, multiple copies, immutable copies, right? I think anyone and everyone, small and large, needs to be looking at this kind of a solution. The cost savings that you can bring to the table immediately in terms of not standing up a second or third site that sits dark, waiting for something to do. I still remember, 2000s, right? When, equipment was flying off the shelves because everybody needed that second site. But, and this was before cloud had really started to make a serious impact. And I think that's where that was the genesis of a lot of demand for cloud services, right? The on-demand capability, as opposed to, why do I have all this equipment sitting around doing nothing? So, fantastic. I think we've successfully landed our Halo jump today. Any final thoughts you want to share before we get into the Q&A? Greg?
There is a promo code.
Oh, yes.
On the next slide, I think. Yep. So if you go to cloudibr.com, either if you're an MSP who wants to get involved in the partner program, go to the partner link. Otherwise, just go to the sign up now. Use Veeam30, all lowercase, as your promo code when registering. That'll get you 30 days free of the Cloud IBR software. It gets you, if you don't already have Veeam, it'll get you a 30-day license for Veeam Enterprise. And then it also gets you unlimited recoveries in the bare metal cloud for those 30 days. So it's a great way to get started.
And on top of that, of course, Wasabi has a 30-day free trial as well. No credit card required. So you've got 30 days, which, is plenty of time to try out Veeam, try out Cloud IBR, try out Wasabi, tie them all together. You've got a full solution there. And the documentation, I know, is out there. So it's not rocket surgery to figure out how to connect these pieces together. You like that one, Rick?
Yeah, rocket science, brain surgery, brain science, rocket surgery, same thing.
Yep. For anybody who is wondering, we've got links to all of these things down below in Bright Talk here, as well as some additional links here for some additional data that we've covered today. The DR calculator, the 30-day free trial, everything will be linked down below. Love to hear your questions, and looking forward to talking with folks in the future. All right, I think I'm going to take us out. Greg, Rick, thank you so much for joining today. Appreciate your time, appreciate your insights, and confident that our audience is going to go away feeling much more comfortable with their data protection strategy.
Thanks for having us, Drew.
Yeah, thank you.
See you, Rick.
All right, that was excellent. You guys do pretty well.
Thank you.
I like how fast I changed my shirt.
Well, I mean, we recorded it this morning. We had all the post-production done, the AI scanning, indexing, right? We'll have this thing in like 16 different languages with subtitles translated into 12 different languages. I mean, technology is a wonderful thing. And that's an artificial shirt you're wearing there, obviously, because it doesn't,
it's not green.
Yeah. It's funny. Somebody ran a webinar I did through some AI bot, and it used my voice, and it came back out in German, and it sounded like me, and it was really good. And that's really scary.
Now, Rick, did you get a residual? Did you get, any compensation for using your likeness?
No royalties. Well, it's still Veeam, so that one ended up green. That's different. My green, not your green. So.
I'm waiting for them to institute NIL for tech presenters.
Gosh, I'll be out.
All right, I think we had a couple of additional questions that we whipped up while we were enjoying listening to ourselves. Greg, I think the first really interesting question is Cloud IBR viable for government agencies, municipalities, public sector?
Yeah, most definitely. And we actually have many of them already. Municipalities specifically, and in a bunch of different states. And the reason they found it so easy to buy was, one, technology, it just worked for them, just like Veeam, it just works. And because of the low cost, and because it's like a sole, type product, they were able to go out and buy it without being on government contract and getting 3 quotes, etc. And most of them, actually 100% of them so far, have all went for the highest level, $499, because of the extra benefits they get for human interaction and support. And they said this is a no-brainer. The quotes they were looking at were 50 to 100 grand a year. This is less than $6,000 a year at the high point. So yeah, we've been doing a lot with government.
Nice. And I mean, I know that Veeam's got a public sector team. I'm working actually on our forthcoming FedRAMP product. That's all I can say right now. Stay tuned. Rick, you guys have done a lot of work in recent history integrating with security apps. Can you talk about that a little bit, and then maybe connect the dots to how that reflects the increased need for disaster recovery?
Sure. So a lot of people, follow the core Veeam capabilities as they're released. And then in December, we launched 12.1. And actually today, we just had an update go out for it. And the thought here is that one of the big kind of things other than inline malware detection and backing up object storage as a source that we added was this huge ecosystem play.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, we launched a Splunk app to pull that data into Splunk, and really,
I just watched that demo reel, by the way. Nice job.
Yeah. And it sounds like any platform, EDR, Sophos, Splunk, and there's more coming. There's a hook into Veeam, and it can be as simple as event forwarding, like to Azure Sentinel. But it's like Veeam has really good information about what's happening, good and bad. And then if there's other platforms in use, connecting that. So I think that is really important as part of the broader cybersecurity, play, because, Veeam's always been this crossroads of data.
Yep.
All roads lead to Veeam, and then through us to Wasabi. And then if something really comes bad, through Cloud IBR back for reuse. I like that.
Got it.
Crossroads of data.
All right, so we're doing great on time, but I do want to keep it a little tight here. Let's talk, Greg, about path of least resistance, right? So we've got here what I think are best in class, providers, right? Cloud IBR, Veeam, Wasabi. What is the path of least resistance to put together, this solution? Where would somebody go? If somebody calls you today and says, wow, fantastic webinar, you guys crushed it. How do I get started? How do I connect the dots?
So yeah, we get that phone call a lot, by the way. And so if you don't have Veeam already and you're not a Veeam customer at all, the best thing to do is reach out, on Veeam's website. They have a great locator to find an MSP in your area. You can reach out directly to us. We can introduce you to some. And you want to get Veeam up and running, and you want to start sending your backups to Wasabi. So that's the first thing that you need to have in order to be a customer of Cloud IBR. So, and that's probably, I won't say it's probably the most difficult part, because you got to, basically get some software, set it up, and deploy it. So if you're a small business, you'll want your MSP to do that. If you're already a Veeam customer and you're not yet backing up to Wasabi, that's really simple. You just go sign up, get the 30-day trial of Wasabi. You plug in your bucket information once you create it, and make sure immutability is enabled, because if your backups aren't immutable, you don't really have backups. So you want to get those backups out to Wasabi, make sure they're immutable, and then you just go to our website, or if your MSP is a partner of ours, you can contact them. And you can purchase through them. They purchase through distribution. You can buy direct on our website. A lot of easy ways to consume it, and essentially just sign up, you fill out, that 27 minutes I mentioned, you fill out a few forms, and then you click recover now, and it starts going.
And I got to believe, and Rick, back me up here, there's a fair amount of cross-pollination between the VCSP program that Veeam has and these MSPs that you're talking about, right? So there is a fair number of folks out there who are already familiar with you, already familiar with Veeam, right? Can certainly help folks accelerate getting this part of their data protection strategy implemented.
Yeah, and I'll say there's even some really niche examples. In fact, the bank that finances my car, okay, so it's personal, right? But that particular bank uses an MSP for DR, but not for backup. So they use Veeam powered MSP for their DR, but they use something else for backup, which, I can entertain the value and the resiliency, the double play of that. So partnerships have always been really central to Veeam's DNA. And to Greg's point, right, it's very easy to get started here. Very easy. I think really all three solutions, Veeam, Wasabi, and Cloud IBR, have trials. We're very clearly aligned for what we call product-led growth, to get in and try this on your own. And there is some DIY, but to Greg's point, an MSP can take that off your plate for you. And the choice, the freedom of choice is there when it comes to these types of solutions. Where do you want? You have full control over the data. You know exactly where it's going to go.
Yep.
Your own keys, those types of things. I think there's really a lot of value for kind of the conditions of today with that approach.
Well, Rick, you're the reason we're here today. You brought us together, and yeah,
and I'm doing it again too. So
I know.
Yeah.
Where are we at? 3 weeks, and we'll all be in beautiful sunny Florida, hanging out, talking about some of the same things. So a little plug there, right? If you're looking for some more education, you want to meet us in person, get our autographs, come on down to Veeam in beautiful sunny Florida, and we'll be happy to talk to you at length about anything and everything. And there might even be a glass of bourbon in it for you if you come see my session. So, all right.
Good question from Ted Bazile at Oracle Corporation. And he had asked about, can you talk about some of the customers that are using the joint solution, and a great tie into Veeam. If you're going to be at Veeam, we actually have one of our customers who's going there. They were one of the first customers to sign up when we launched, and they actually, I referenced them during the pre-recorded webinar. They had about a 2.5 week RTO, just based on ordering equipment. Where am I going to send it? All that great stuff. And even if it's not a physical disaster, if it's just ransomware and your equipment is fine, you can't just overwrite last night's, store last night's backup. You have to, leave that for forensics and insurance purposes, et cetera. So Cloud IBR took them from a 2.5 week RTO down to about 6 hours, which is, and it's a click of a button. There's not going to be any hair pulling, no decisions made under duress, because whether it's ransomware or a disaster, it's, usually one of the worst times of your life professionally. Dealing with that. So, and because we've been dealing with it for 3 decades, we just wanted to make it easy. Give them a button to click, be done with it. But you'll actually get to meet some of the Veeam 100. We've had a great response from them. They get some Wasabi as part of their relationship with you guys. We gave them Cloud IBR access to it. They've been running it. Some of them almost daily been running recoveries, and the feedback we've gotten from them is tremendous.
Yep.
And some of it's constructive feedback, like, hey, could you do this, that? And that's how we kind of keep evolving the product. Is the Veeam experts out there, the Veeam 100, and even our customers who aren't experts. Some of the customers, they're lucky if they have that one person in house who can do just enough to run IT. They're running IT, but the backups is it's always on the back shelf. So Veeam will be a great place to actually meet some of these people in person and get non-biased third party references versus of course I'll tell you how great it is.
I'm looking forward to seeing you guys face to face. Rick, any final thoughts before we sign off?
Well, just, along Greg's point, he hit on kind of a different point of view that I've been saying for a long time. There are a lot of people out there that can't even spell DR. And the reality is it doesn't have to be really hard. I grew up doing tests once a year. The boss would buy pizza.
Yeah.
Most of everything would fail, and we'll just try to do better next year. It's not going to fly anymore. So, solutions, immutability, innovation, all of those things that we talked about today can make you have proper DR without the PhD. Bad joke. So.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, thank you again. Thanks for sitting in on the live Q&A. Come on down to Florida, see the gang, learn a lot, and let's make sure your data is safe. All right, with that, thank you all and have a fantastic day.
Sure.
Take care.